start off with 1 or 2 slides. So just to let you know as well, this is very slide PowerPoint light. So 1 or 2 slides just to position it in case your heart has already dropped. So 1 or 2 slides, I'm going to get onto the good stuff, actually show you it in action, and I'm sure the questions will start flowing at that point. We do also have a Q&A session at the end, so you can certainly have a slot to ask all the questions that you want. But generally what works really well is, as I'm going through it, for you guys to kind of ask questions, and I might say to you, great question, park that for a while, I'm about to get there and your question will be answered. But yeah, please interact, put me on the spot, ask me questions, and I think that way we can optimize what we can get out of this session. Okay. All right, so the high-level slides, getting through them fairly quickly, just to position TM1. So the first thing to note, it's an IBM product, and it's used by many companies around the world. I think the latest stats show that there are about 4 million users around the world of TM1. And the other thing to note as well is that this product developed way before it was acquired by IBM. It was originally owned by a company called Applex, bought by Cognos, bought by IBM, all this sort of consolidation that has happened over the last few decades. But the important thing to note is that this thing has been around for about 20 years. So it's been around for 20 years and being used extensively for 20 years. So I guess the overall point here, it's got a very high pedigree. It competes very strongly with best products, and I think is in our view, last obviously the most successful one. So at an enterprise level, at a small company level, it's featured around the world. In terms of what TM1 is used for, the primary use case for TM1 is budgeting and forecasting, management reporting, and also doing things like cash flow forecasting. But as I hope to show you, TM1 is actually basically at its heart an exceptionally powerful modeling tool in its own right. And a lot of our customers have kind of started a journey where they've used it in the areas that most require help, which is budgeting and forecasting mayhem and chaos with tons and tons of spreadsheets. So we get that problem sorted out. They then basically think, I've got spreadsheets around the business for HR operations and everything else that are also quite hairy and scary. What about TM1? The answer is absolutely. So we basically use TM1 everywhere an Excel spreadsheet is used, and especially in areas where it gets complicated and hard to maintain and control. All right, so I think.
Question from
yeah,
my side. Would
sure.
it be, is there capability to integrate it into payroll reporting, to flow into financial reporting?
Absolutely. So we've done payroll reporting, budgeting and forecasting, and reporting. So there's definitely an overlap, but some people use it for BI as well. So we do things like your payroll reporting and budgeting and forecasting. We've done it on the operational front for logistics planning, planning for trucks when they need to schedule their fleets to go out. We've done it even in a production environment where it's used to actually produce packing plans for the day based on the sales forecast, the stock on hand, warehouse capacity. So it's an exceptionally powerful modeling tool. So it's good to get this out front so that you've got it in the back of your mind. So we're going to go into budgeting and forecasting, but bear in mind the potential extension of this into virtually every operational area of your business to help you run it. Okay. The other thing to note, and this is a very important one, is that it's got an Excel front end. So there are many tools out there that where it's all web-based, okay, and there are definitely many competitors in the market, and the web-based, shiny, glitzy, sexy interface is kind of like a given. So we do all of that, okay? So we've got fantastic looking dashboards and comments and all of that. But the most important thing is the underlying functionality. So it's virtually every product out there looks good. It's got a web interface, it looks fantastic. You can look at it and at face value, wow, that looks fantastic for me. But the important thing is in our mind, and where I think Team One really stands out, is the back end financial modeling functionality, where there is absolutely nothing, bold statement, that we cannot model that you can model in Excel. Your most hairy, scary spreadsheets we can do and improve upon them and do things that you just can't do in Excel because it becomes too complicated and will fall over. The other thing to note on that is you have these dashboards, and we have them too, and a lot of users work in them. But in the engine room, you guys working in the finance department, you want to work in Excel. So spreadsheets are great, punch in stuff on a screen, the screen is small, but you want big spreadsheets with all the information on it. And that is really the primary tool of choice for people in finance. Sure, when you distribute it across the business, and you've got your sales people and they want to punch in information and see stuff, it's very nice for them to punch in on a web interface. But when you actually want to produce management reports, detailed income statements, balance sheets, consolidated management accounts, it's going to be in Excel. You're not going to have your management pack generated from a web interface. So Excel is the tool of choice for the people, the finance people in the trenches, and then you can expose it to the users in a nice, sexy format to use. Okay. The other thing as well, with Excel as a front end, the learning curve becomes incredibly easy because everyone knows Excel. So it's really a case, and you'll see this shortly, of you open up Excel, there's a Team One add-in, and you then get to bring in data into Excel. So Excel is the front end that you use, but the fundamental difference is that Excel acts as a window into a centralized, what we call a cube database. So you're working in Excel, but every number you see and every number that you punch in is being written to or read from a centralized database. So if someone else opens their Excel spreadsheet that looks different because they want to present it differently, they're going to get the same numbers. Compare that to the current situation where you have an Excel spreadsheet and you've got your formulas in it, and your formula might be different. Your definition of revenue might be slightly different. So you have this constant issue where you can go to look at open different Excel spreadsheets and you have different numbers. So with TM1, all the data is stored in a central repository, and that includes raw data that we might ingest from other systems. It includes data punched in by users as they capture it. But more importantly, it includes all the business logic in one place. So your definition of sales and how it's calculated, all of that, all of the formulas, if I can relate it to Excel, actually reside in the central location. So you can't go and hack your Excel formula and change it and inadvertently make it different to what the group standard is. So it's really about getting the best of both worlds. And once you get it into Excel, you drag and drop it, your data is there, and then you can use Excel like you normally do. You insert rows, columns, you can put Excel calculations, you can add a sheet, you can bring in data from another TM1 source like Payroll, and reference with Excel formulas, link it. Don't link it across Excel spreadsheets because that's done for you, but link it to another sheet. So you can have a whole sheet. And ultimately, you can build up your entire management accounts pack with all the different pages in Excel. Open it up, refreshes with the data, type comments, centrally stored, hit a button, produce your management accounts, and away you go. Everyone's looking at the same data the whole time. It's also very scalable. Excel's got, what, 1 million rows, and you try and have a really complicated Excel system of budgeting where spreadsheets link to spreadsheets, which in turn link to others. You don't refresh your links, there are formula issues. It becomes an absolute nightmare, as I'm sure you've all experienced. This is a tool which is there to eliminate that, let you work in Excel, but take away all the pain. Okay. So that is the bold intro, and I hope to follow this with a bold demo of exactly how it can actually work. All right. So the last 2 points I think I've already covered. Easy to use, no training, you don't need to be an IT person. You drag, drop, write your reports out. Training course is about a day long just to show you how to drag and drop and visualize. You're good to go. We do also have great dashboards and visualizations as well as a skin. But to me, I'm a bit of a purist. I believe in the value add, focusing on the value add, which is doing it because you'll go and look at any other tool and they all look very cool and sexy in terms of an interface. All right, so in terms of the demo today, I'm going to basically be focusing a lot of time on a real life model. So there is some great IBM demo material out there, but I always find it more impactful to talk about a model that we've actually implemented for a client. So it's a scaled down version of what we've got, just for demo purposes. So this is a model that we actually put together for the Bearing Man Group. It's an engineering components company. And again, that's obviously, I'm sure, no one in this room deals with engineering components, but from a finance point of view, we all know that there's some strong similarities in any industry vertical in terms of what you need to do from a budgeting, forecasting, or reporting point of view. Okay, so even though this speaks to Bearing Man, I think you'll be able to relate to all of these components, and they'll just obviously be different in your industry vertical. So you're always going to have, for example, revenue budgeting, OPEX budgeting, CAPEX, payroll, all of those kinds of things are going to feature. So you should be good to relate to this. So the first thing to note on the sheet is that when we started with Bearing Man, this slide would have been black. It would have been blank. There would have been nothing on it. Because what we do in TM1, and the way TM1 works, is you don't have any pre-built modules. So you don't have a module for sales budgeting, for payroll budgeting. And that's one of the great things about it. It's because you are able to craft something specific to your business requirements. I mean, everyone has got very unique business requirements, and tools which have a module covering certain areas are just never going to work, because you're going to have to force fit all the intricacies of your business to the particular module that you have. So we start off with a blank slate, and TM1 is basically like a modeling framework. And the best analogy we've got is, think of a blank Excel spreadsheet. So you can start a brand new company, for example, take that as an example, and you start growing and you want to do a budget. You start weaving something together in Excel. So the same thing applies with TM1. We basically open up a model. There's not a single thing there. We basically do requirements analysis, find out how the business works, and then we'll put together a model specific for all the business requirements of the particular customer. Obviously, there's a lot of experience we can bring to the party, because we do budgets all the time. So you guys think, oh, geez, budget time of the year, that sucks. Well, I don't know. We're a bit nuts. We do budgeting every day of our lives, you know, for a company. So there's always someone in the middle of the budgeting process. So over the course of time, we've obviously got a lot of experience in good ways of doing budgeting. So one of the things we bring to the party is we go to customer and say, well, look, you know, we've got another customer who does it this way. What about considering this? So we don't want to just reproduce what you do in Excel, which will in itself add value because things can't break. But we also bring expertise in terms of really cool ways other people have done their budgets and things that have worked well for them. So back to the slide, we started off with nothing. We ended up with this. And the kind of design, this is a sort of high level design of how things fit together. And what we typically have, again, this is not mandatory, is we'll typically have, when you're doing budgeting and forecasting, your final cube will be your what we call the general ledger cube, kind of like your trial balance with cost center, account code, all of those kinds of things. So that level of granularity. But to get to those numbers, to get to your payroll numbers, your sales numbers, and all those kinds of things, the way you'd probably currently work is, yes, the numbers will finally be allocated to an account in the cost center, but there are going to be tons of Excel spreadsheets that basically assemble the underlying detail behind that. You know, sales maybe down to a SKU level, maybe down to a customer level. You'll have payroll down to an individual employee level. So what we normally do is we identify the sort of big ticket items wherever there's some science involved. And again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, the most complicated spreadsheets we can do in TM1, and we can do things that you just can't do in Excel. So typically, for example, on the slide, we'll have a sales cube, and in here we'll import information from the ERP system or any other system. You can import from multiple systems. We'll bring in sales data, potentially right down to an individual customer level, a SKU level, bring in the actuals. That typically gets used even in Excel as a base for forecasting and budgeting in the next year. So all of this gets ingested into TM1 from external systems. We'll bring it in. You'll have your information in there. You'll have a facility to capture information into it. So you don't just import. Obviously, people want to capture stuff into it. You capture in your budgets, and all the formulas will be in the cube. So when you're opening an Excel spreadsheet as a user, you are not the person capturing the formulas and potentially getting them wrong. So we'll have a sales cube. It'll feed into the GL. So one of the concepts that is really powerful in TM1 is the concept of linking stuff together, just like you would in Excel. So Excel is great in terms of being able to link stuff, but the problem is it's high risk, things break. You move files, you insert rows, columns, the links break, numbers are wrong, all those kinds of things. With the TM1, you're actually linking at a database level. So a particular customer will belong to a cost center, an account will basically be assigned to a particular, a sales item like revenue or cost of sales will be assigned to a particular account. And the minute you change a number, so you change the sales for an individual customer for a particular month, for a particular SKU, you hit the enter key, your GL updates, your P&L is on that. So you have instantaneous update where you change a number and everything in the model that is driven by sales volumes ripples and changes automatically. So it's the ultimate interconnected set of Excel spreadsheets that can't break, that can handle huge amounts of data.
So another question from me, and please feel free to add on.
Please do, everyone.
Discussion. So from our perspective, not relevant at EOH, but in a manufacturing and retail environment, we have thousands, if not at times millions of SKUs.
Yes.
How does the system handle it in terms of source data, upload from external systems, yes, and load in here from a budgeting perspective?
Yes. So we basically have never had an issue where we hit a limit in terms of importing the thousands or millions of SKUs or customers. So that is it's very scalable in that regard.
Good.
It is not, however, and I'll say this up front, it is not a sort of big data system. So what we don't do is we don't upload transactional level detail. Okay, so so if you have, we normally sort of go to a balance level. So you'll have your, from a GL point of view, if you're just looking at your general ledger actuals that are coming in, we'll have accounts and cost center, but we're not going to upload all the journal entry transactions that underpin that. You can actually drill through it, and there's a way of doing that, but it is not designed to basically function in a big data capacity, and we've never really found that to be an issue. If you want the detailed journal entries, you can kind of drill through from here to the data. It's not that amazing. It sort of runs a query and it shows you it on a screen, but the primary use case is it's scalable, but it's not big data, and we've never really found that to be an issue in the way in which this tool is used for budgeting, forecasting, and reporting.
Great stuff. Good. Thank you.
Sure.
This relates to that question. So I'm at Prime Media, so obviously we have big 4 radio stations.
Sure.
Obviously we're not dealing with selling a product. We sell airtime
yes,
on the radio stations.
Yes.
Would is that something you've done before for another entity, or would it be compatible to like? Because obviously we've got a specific sales system that we use.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that's the message again. So, whatever we designed this from the ground up. So we obviously have a portfolio of customers, and we've covered numerous industry verticals, call centers, financial services, manufacturing, where you're dealing with products going through a factory. So whatever you can conceptualize as something that you would be able to do in Excel, we can do it. So, and we often get the questions, well, can it do this? So the answer is yes. all the time, because if you can conceptualize it in Excel and do it in Excel, we can certainly do it here. And it also goes back to the point where we can basically construct anything, even if we haven't had experience with that industry vertical. And chances are, with 4 million people around the world as Tier 1 users, there's someone out there who's actually done it, if you want kind of further proof that it will do it. But I think when we get into the demo and by the end of it, you might have some more insights, but we can chat further about that as well.
You've got a rate card per time
per
frame,
slot,
per day,
yeah.
per slots, pre-news, post-news, in
Yeah.
between news. That related into a sales catalog for
Yeah.
product is something we could show you.
Yeah. As an example, some propeller head out there wrote Sudoku on Team 1 as a challenge. Okay, so if you want us to do Sudoku for you, so you have a bit of fun while you're doing your budgeting, we could probably do that for you as well. Okay, and then in terms of joining, linking stuff together, just like Excel, you can basically link stuff any which way you want to. So you can link, it's not just linked to one cube like the GL. As I said, this was a blank slate. We can link and design as many cubes as we want, but just to get the drive the message home. So payroll is linked to uniform. So when they budget in payrolls, you budget new heads. You basically indicate if they a new head, if they work in the factory, if they need protective gear. So we've got a uniforms cube that's got basically items like protective eyewear, boots, overalls, all of those kinds of things. So the minute you hit a new person, indicates if they work in the factory. The uniform cube updates, which is the latest prices from the supplier. In turn, that basically feeds into the GL. The GL updates your bottom line update straight away. Sales information as well. You have sales budgets, and that relates to your payroll. So, for example, you'll have all your salespeople getting commission. So if you change your sales number, automatically the commission calculations in the payroll cube will update, and in turn each of those will feed into the GL. So any change you make will ripple through the entire model. So you can sit there, change one parameter, one item, and not have to go and recalculate your spreadsheets. It happens automatically. Your recharges you'll program in, those will happen automatically. So it's a live dynamic system. The other example is payroll and vehicles. If you have a new head and they're entitled to a company car, you can basically indicate they're entitled to a company car. That basically links to the vehicle cube, which is an FML lease cube, and that will basically cost in a new car and all the lease payments that are associated with the new car. And in turn links to the insurance and tracking cube, which basically updates the insurance based on the latest insurance rates that we have. In turn links to the GL. So yeah, you can carry on for ages, but everything's linked together, everything's dynamic. You change one thing, the effect ripples through the entire model. So enough talking. Let's go and have a look at some of the good stuff. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do here is log on here. So atypical desktop, and you want to work with TM1. So let me actually close everything down so I can start from scratch over here. Okay, open up Excel, and first thing you'll do is you'll go in here and you'll connect. So everything is security based. So that's the other big thing as well. You can secure your data, your information at a data level. So if you think about Excel, you've got a payroll spreadsheet, okay? Sort of, you have to be very careful about controlling that, password protected and all of that. But there's someone, you also want to distribute that information potentially to your cost center managers. So you can have a payroll, you can open up payroll to everyone, and you apply security at the cost center level. So you'll say, right, for example, these people are the cost center managers, so they have access at a data level to their cost centers. So you'll have two people opening exactly the same payroll reports. If you work in payroll or finance and you have the right authority, you'll be able to filter and see the entire company. Someone else opens the same report, and they will only see information for their particular cost center branch. Contrast that to Excel, which becomes very difficult to work with. Okay, So I've signed in, so that's a little aside about security. And just to get going in terms of the interface, so a few minutes on the interface and navigating your way around, and then we'll start talking specifically about budget calculations. So I can open up my sales cube. So you have a whole list of cubes here, which kind of correspond to the diagram I had earlier. So just a quick question. Are you guys familiar with the concept of a cube? For those of you who aren't, think of it as a pivot table in Excel with rows and columns on steroids, or steroids, and one which can consume huge amounts of data. And then for each cube, you will have different dimensions. And again, this will kind of be similar to the pivot table analogy in Excel, where you can drag fields as rows or columns. So you'll have information for the sales budget about the year, the month, the version. Versioning is great. You can have actual budget forecast, but you can also snapshot versions as you go through your budgeting cycle, like pre-board review, budget pre-board review. Keep that across the entire model for payroll, sales, HR, everything that you want. You can snapshot it as a budget version and then compare them over the course of time and see what's changed. So versioning is something that's used extensively. Product dimension, customer dimension, measures sales, cost of sales, gross profit, all those kinds of things. So those are the components that make up the sales cube. So you can have different dimensions for different cubes, but that's the overall idea. So if you want to start interacting with your data, so let's wear the hat of someone who wants to analyze the data. So there'll be lots of pre-configured templates and stuff that we often deliver as part of the initial solution, but you can jump in and start as a user analyzing the information and sort of playing an analyst kind of role to explore what is driving your numbers and the changes in them and the variances and all those good things. So just as a starting point, I'm going to click on this, go to exploration on this sheet over here, and it starts off with a kind of like a default view for sales. Okay, and again, this is more of like an analyst view as opposed to a formatted view, which I'll get onto very shortly, where you can start slicing, dicing, analyzing your information, swapping rows and columns. So we'll quickly go through this and just show how easy, excuse me, how easy it is to actually perform these kinds of operations without any technical IT skills or prowess. Okay, so what we have an area for the rows. And this is really the products. We have an area for the columns, which I've got measures, sales, cost of sales, and then just filters for the report itself. So filtering all customers, all months, etc. Okay, so I'm just going to play around a bit just to give you guys a flavor of how you can analyze your data and pretty much do what you want to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm sort of keen on looking at customers more than divisions for my particular purpose over here. So I'll take customers, drag them onto divisions to swap them around. So customers have appeared there. And then as for my columns, I want to kind of nest a few things. I want more information than this. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm firstly going to drag years across to my columns. So years are nested in over here. And I'm then going to drag in versions. I can use my mouse properly. I'm going to drag inversions across over here. And in a couple of clicks, I've got information about the current actuals, forecast, and budgets that I am looking at. Okay, and you're working in Excel, and all of this is being drawn from a centralized database. So if someone else has got a template somewhere else in the business, and they have the right authority to do so, and they're updating their sales numbers for a particular branch, your numbers are going to be exactly the same. You can also use this template to capture the information, provided you have the right security. So the concept of a report in a template is kind of almost irrelevant in a way. You can have something that you use as a report, but on that report, if you've got the right authority and the budgets are open and all of that, report template, you can change numbers on it if you're allowed to do it, and you have the authority to do it as well. So we'll look at all those kinds of things. But right now, I'm just looking through the lens of someone, I guess, investigating the data. So I can then look at this information and I can start interacting with it, all in Excel. and I can, for example, drill in South Africa. So they've basically have a customer master setup where all the information is grouped into countries and then into branches. So an important point to realize over here, all of the master information we import from the ERP system. So the customers that you have, the reps that are assigned to those customers, the branches that the customer belongs to, all of that metadata is ingested from the ERP system. So whenever something changes, TM1 mirrors your master data changes that you have in your ERP system. Okay. So you can drill from there right down to an individual customer branch. You can drill down to a salesperson, and you can then drill down to, if I drill again, you can drill down to an individual customer. Okay. But now the great thing behind this, sure.
Let's say this different countries.
Yeah. So my first question is, if you think about that problem, can you do it in Excel? Okay. So the answer is absolutely yes, and we do that all the time. So the countries typically capture in their local currency. We have a Forex cube. You update the Forex cube, it calculates, and then you can go to your Forex cube, change your rate of exchange, and straight away, if you've got a ZAR holding company, everything recalculates based on the currency changes that you've made for that particular month.
So the currency input is a manual or from a web system? Either.
So if you have, if you on your ERP system are basically storing the currencies over time, you can import it from there. So for budgeting and forecasting, that's something you'll typically capture because your ERP system is normally capturing data as it is. But if you're looking next year, you typically would want to, I guess, punch that information in. But if it's held in a different source, we can certainly import it and use it as well. Okay, so you're now in Excel. Now, the great thing about Excel is that you can now start using all the normal Excel stuff that you've got. You can format it, you can insert rows and columns, and you can spruce it up because this isn't really presentation ready. So as an analyst, this might be fine for you because you just wanted to find out why a number had changed. But you might be doing this because you actually want to report. So you want to spruce this up and make it look a bit better. So rather than me wasting time doing some Excel formatting stuff, I'm going to basically open up an existing report. And that's the other thing to mention. All of your Excel sheets, all your reports are actually saved on the server itself. So you could save them in a shared folder somewhere, but the whole idea is to have everything in one place. So all your Excel reports are actually saved within TM1. So if I open up this over here and I go to my folder structure, I've got a folder for sales and I've got a template over here. And this template looks very similar to the template that you saw before, but it's spruced up. So we just put in logos, we inserted Excel calculations. So most of the calculations we would do, and it makes sense to do this, to do it in the model itself. You know, GP sales minus cost of sales. You shouldn't be in your report having a formula because you can break the formula. So as much logic as you can put in to the model itself, we do that. But there are occasions where there's not a calculation there, no problem. So your variance, your GP percent, for example, we would actually put that in. But if you wanted to look at variances, that's an Excel formula. So you can just basically insert that. If I wanted to insert a new calculation over here, I could just go over here, make this, I don't know, cost of sales percent. No one really wants to know that, but
oh, we do.
okay, some of you do. Cost of sales as opposed to GP percent. And then you can basically just go take cost of sales divided by that over there. Okay, and then we just format this as %, and then just refresh my sheet. And let me just refresh this. So let me run there. There you have your, and it gets taken all the way down, and you can then go and drill down on your information. And you'd put in if it's 0, don't divide by 0 kind of thing, but it's all there. And you can have exception highlighting where it changes color if it's over a certain thing. So all of those kinds of things can be done as well. Okay. All right, so that gives you an idea of looking at your information. Now let's chat about actually capturing budgets, okay? Because a report and a template, like I said, are the same thing. So this is actually really used, not so much as a report, which it does function as to a certain extent, but it's used to actually capture the budgets that you want to put in. So the way the process works for Bearing Man, sales is actually very simple over here. So normally for most of our customers, we'll have a sales model where you'll input volumes, you'll have unit prices, price changes, all of those kinds of things. For these guys over here, they basically have a fairly simplistic model because for various reasons, it's not practical for them to go down to all the individual SKUs. So they capture sales and basically as a punched in number, they capture GP %, and the cost of sales and GP adjust automatically. But like I said, this is probably the most simple example we've had. We've had some extremely complicated sales revenue calculations that we do. But what's relevant for now is just really to focus on the possibilities of what you can do here. So in this example over here, I'm going to basically look at budgeting at the simplest level. So you can open this up and you can, for example, filter on a particular product division. So I'll double click on my divisions over here and get to see all the different product divisions that I have. Okay, and in here, I'm going to look at bearings only. So I might decide I want to focus on bearings, apply that. Okay, and now it's showing the numbers for bearings that are currently sitting in the database. So I can go to Pietermaritzburg, for example. So at the simplest level, I could go down to Pietermaritzburg, I can go down to a rep, I can go to B&G Engineering, and it's 93 million and it's 6,000 Rand, and I can go in for this particular customer, for this product division, and I can go in and type in 16,000.
Can multiple people work on input at the same time? And how do we as the controller realize that they're still inputting?
Yeah, great question. So before I answer that, I've changed this number and I've set it on manual refresh, by the way, just so that my demo flows a bit better. So 16,000, I refresh that sheet and it goes up by 10K. So back to your question, multiple people can work on this at the same time, okay? So whoever hits the enter key first, so if someone else has got the exact same thing, and I type in 16,000 and 10 seconds later they punch in 20,000, the latest number is going to reflect. So practically speaking, the way we've always seen it working from a practical point of view is that security is used to determine who can capture what. So you might get two people who have the same responsibility of capturing. Very often you have someone who's responsible for their particular branch, or they're the sales rep, and they'll capture for their stuff. So no one else will have the option of doing that. But if they do, it'll be the first person who captures it. The other important thing to say as well, and this is really a great feature, is you have full audit trail functionality. So I've changed this from 10,000 or 6,000 to 16,000. It logs the fact that user Chris has at 7:14. No, this isn't 7:14. This is the model. What are we now? We're sitting at 10:14. What are we? 9:14. We're sitting at 9:14. So it'll show user Chris at 9:14. Changed the number for B&G Engineering for sales. The previous value was 6,000. He changed it to 16,000.
So where do you see that, Chris?
you can pull reports that shows you the full transactional thing. So you pull up a report, you say, show me all changes for sales between 8:30 and 10 o'clock, and show any changes that have been made, and show me the list of all the changes that have been made.
So that helps when people keep changing their budgets.
Correct. And you can lock the budgets too, but if they change them when they're allowed to change them, and you think, what the hell happened there and who did it, you can go in and look. And you also have the functionality where, you know, you can sort of capture a budget. We've had this before, and we've had someone work for a few hours, and I think, my word, I've had a bad morning. I've stuffed up my budget completely. Okay, so you can go in there and say, right, for me, user Chris, I just want to start again between 8:30 and 10:30. Give me all the transactions I've made, back them all out, and it will reverse them all out back to where you were.
And is there functionality where you have FM reviewed, FD reviewed, CFO reviewed per budget, per cluster? Yeah,
you do. There is workflow functionality. So there's built-in workflow functionality, and it really is about you flag that you've captured your numbers, but it doesn't work like it. The built-in functionality doesn't work like a conventional workflow system where if you're submitting expenses, where you submit them and then it's kind of locked. So the built-in functionality is there. We prefer to design it ourselves because we can then set up a system. And like I say, this is so flexible. We can set up a workflow system where we put in a button and you click it, and then that basically gets locked from a security point of view and unlocks the security for your manager who needs to do it. So there's built-in functionality. We think we can design it ourselves within TM1 to do it in a better way. So all of that is possible one way or the other.
So 2 questions. So
sure.
One is, how do you, so I think you alluded to locking.
Yes.
So for example, your 2021 results being actual and kind of set in stone, and someone not going and changing those numbers thereafter, is that just
great question. So what we'll normally do is locking kind of means you can sort of kind of secure it in any conceivable way is once again the bold statement again. So you can lock something completely, so nothing can be changed to do with sales, actuals, budgets. The whole entity is locked. Okay, so that's the sledgehammer approach. Normally what happens is we sometimes do that when they just don't want anything to change. So let's just be paranoid and just lock it, nothing can change. But then you also have the situation like you're describing where actuals, you don't want people to change that. So when we import information, we have this whole concept of versioning. So actuals will go against version actual. So we'll have a rule that applies across every single cube, whether it's payroll, sales, and all of that, where for users, actual is they don't have security to change actual. So you can give them access to sales, and then you can further lock, even though it's sales, you can lock actuals to be read-only. And that read-only can be for the sales cube, but you can lock actuals across your entire model, and actuals, wherever you're working, is always read-only.
And then my second question, how do you what do you do in terms of disaster recovery? So do you backups in this thing?
Absolutely. So everything is held in a database. So that's the great thing. And all that information, there's no SQL Server database for those of you slightly technical. It's got its own proprietary system, and they're all files. So it's literally copying the files. It's like a file backup. So you've got a folder. It literally sits on a server in a folder with all your stuff. And then if something goes badly wrong, you ask IT to basically restore the backup from yesterday. If the whole server goes down, there'll be tape backups like you normally have. Pull out the tape from last night, last week. The model's back to where it was. Okay, so this is So just back to my train of thought over here. You've changed your budget over here from 16,000, okay? But the way they typically work in Bearingman, and this will be the case for, I think for many of you guys, is that you don't want to budget in most cases at the most granular level because it is just not practical. So this particular scenario, what will happen for Bearingman is they will have a budget that gets pre-populated, so it makes life easier. They'll have some exec guidelines as to what they want the uplifts to be from the actuals or the forecast. The budget gets pre-populated, and then I would, for example, be the Bearings national sales manager across the country. Now I want to go in, and at this point I want to start changing my numbers. At a later point, we're going to go and look at allocating and splitting hairs and doing it customer A versus customer B, one up, one down. But at this stage, I want to punch in a high level number for Bearings, or the high level number for Bearings for a particular country. For me to go along and go and do it by customer level is something that I would simply refuse to do. You know, it will take a month of Sundays to do it. To go into each customer, and if I want this to go up by 5 million, it would take me ages to actually go and do it. So what Team One has got, which is to me one of the most enticing factors about it, of the many, but I keep saying it, is to be able to do bottom up, which is what we've done, and top down forecasting. And very often with Excel, you kind of confined from a practicality point of view to budget at a high level, and then it becomes a mission to spread it down. But it's the only way to do it, because to go and budget by customer is just too much of a mission. But then you lose out because allocating it out becomes a hassle afterwards. Team One, you can do a combination of bottom up and top down, and in harmony, and you can get the best of both worlds, the detail plus being able to capture at a high level. So what I'm going to do now, just by way of change, so that you guys don't get too bored with Excel, I'm just going to show you what I've just described, and I'm just going to use a web interface. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but just to illustrate the fact that we've got a web interface as well, I'm going to do it over there. So I can go to demo over here, I can go to sales, and I can go to adjust sales budget. So once you've written your reports, and that's something you can do as a user, I hope I've sort of got the message home that you don't have to be a guru, you can do it, and it becomes available on the web. And a lot of salespeople in particular, they're not always very happy in Excel, they prefer the web. So a lot of the salespeople for Bearingman use the web interface exclusively. We've got the same information that we have over here. So I can go in here and I can say, right, that 253 million, let's just go back to Bearings over here. So the numbers are the same. So same database, 93 million. So I'm the Bearings sales manager and I'm saying, right, I want my sales to be 95 million, and I'm sure as nuts not going to go and do it at a customer level. So what I want to do is just type in 95 million. Okay, that's my requirement. At the same time, I'm still playing around. I know that if I type in 95 million, my bottom line, because everything is linked together, is going to change straight away. And I'm going to be experimenting today. And I'm kind of a bit worried because my CFO is going to be looking at numbers and they're just going to be like moving targets the whole time. So I want to play without affecting the live real model, and then decide once I've played around a bit what works for me, and then I can kind of release that into the into the greater model, if I can call it that. So what I can do to do that is I can set up what they call a sandbox. So you can go in here and you can create a sandbox, which is like a scenario. So I can call this scenario 1. Okay, and create the sandbox. Okay, so I'm in scenario 1 and I've got my sandbox. Now, this is where the really exciting stuff starts. Okay, so I've got 93 million over here. I want to make that 95 million. So what I can do over here is I can basically push down 95 million in proportion to the existing information that's there in the same ratio per month, per customer, per product. So I can go into here, and I'm still in a sandbox, so I'm not going to give anyone a big shock right now, maybe later. I can go to proportional spread, and there are lots of different spreads, so I don't have time to go over them all, but proportional spread will be a good one. And I'm going to make this 95 million. So I can type in 95.
This is the kind of thing that makes finance and sales have a go.
Hence, it's smiling so much here.
Okay, here we go. 95 million done. So also what you'll see is whenever you have a number that's different from the live version, it's in blue. Okay, so this is pushed all the way down.
Does it force the person to go in and balance it to something called other?
Well, if you balancing this, why would you, sorry, your question to balance to other?
So if you go and you just change the total from 91 to 95, right? Surely you've got to change a category at the bottom.
So what it does is it's proportionately gone in and spread that 90, that difference in proportion to the numbers that were there before. Okay.
And the cost of sales as well.
The cost of sales is calculated from the GP percent. So you can change the GP percent. So that way they budget, like I said, very simplistically. So please don't think that this is how you can budget in it. They punch in a GP percent. So the sales has changed. It applies the GP percent, and that calculates the cost of sales in the GP. You can also go and change the GP percent and push that down and leave the sales the same, and your cost of sales and your GP will change automatically as well.
Very careful.
Thank you. I can't say thank you to IBM. Okay, so if you scroll down, it's changed it. Now, the other thing I can do as well is I can say, right, Zambia, that number is set in stone, okay? So we don't want that to change. So I can go to Zambia and I can say, I want to put a hold on Zambia. So that's always going to remain 4.3 million. So I've put a hold, but now I want to make this 96 million and I don't want Zambia to change. But you can do this at all different kinds of levels as well. So I can go in here and say, for example, data spread, proportional spread, and I want this to be 96 million. And I can apply that. And Zambia hasn't changed. It's done the split over the remaining products. And then I can go in here. Once I'm done, I can basically release all holds.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, that's one example of how we can do this on the web. Yeah.
So now the question from me, okay. Sometimes you get views or clusters sandbagging where you feel you're actually not performing or growing as much as you want to, but from a group perspective, we'd like to do an adjustment to their budget. You'll get there? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
So what we often do, well, I won't get there, but what I mean, there's just infinite number of ways to, I guess, skin the cats. So sometimes what happens is you'll have a sales budget, and that will roll up to your GL, okay? And it might be from subsidiaries and all of that. So you might decide, look, at the group level, you're not going to go back and decide how you're going to allocate it out. So you could just have, for example, a number coming in from subsidiary A, and then you could have something like group high level adjustment, punch it in, and your total will be original value plus group, giving you your final total that you have.
Okay, good.
Okay, and let me just, sorry, I seem to have lost my navigation ribbon. Top here, go back in here. And then on this as well, if I want to go into the income statement, for example, I can open up my income statement. Okay, and if I go back, let me just open up I lost my little navigation pane on the side. Murphy's Law on a presentation. Close that down. Okay. Okay, so there's your income statement. You normally have them stacked as tabs, but no demo would be a demo without something not going the way you want. So I'd have different tabs going across here. And then your income statement, if you remember that 253 million over here, you can basically see the numbers there. And if I change this to that scenario 1 that we had, we've got the 253 million up here as the sandbox. Or I changed it to 255, and then you can show the base level item that we have over here. Okay. And then once you've done a sandbox, you can commit it to live and override it so that scenario 1, you can make the live version and all of that. Okay. So just in the interests of time, I always get carried away. It's always my biggest problem. I get too excited. So let me just move swiftly on over here just to show you guys another few examples. So the other thing just to show you is another section. So we looked at sales, we looked at spreading, creating your own reports. So what I'll show you next is the payroll budgets. And again, I mean, I'd love to spend all day with you, but I think you guys got better things to do. So let me go here, MG, demo, and let's go to payroll and payroll parameters. Okay, so let's just talk quickly about payroll. So this is just a scaled down version of the model that they have. But basically the way payroll works is that we firstly will connect to their payroll system. So they don't actually use their ERP system for payroll. They use VIP, and just driving home the point that you can import data from multiple systems. So we import all the VIP information from the VIP system down to an individual employee level. And it contains all the information, their pay rate, their medical aid scheme, their start dates, bonus structures, all of that. We import it all the way into TM1, and we have all of that information in TM1 based on the VIP data. We then have a parameter sheet where we will capture all the parameters that drive the budget for the new year based on your existing headcount. So you'll have medical aid increases, salary increases, profit share commissions, all of those things. So it literally becomes a two-step process for existing employees. You hit a button, imports it from VIP, you change this, your budget's done. It's recalculated. You can open reports and see by employee how the actual budget numbers come out. But that's it for your existing headcount. Then the other part of the payroll budgeting side is to capture new employees. So you go in, open a template for new employees, and you will then be able to see what you're allowed to see in terms of security. So this goes back to the points I made, where you can actually open up the payroll cube and just secure it at a cost center level. So in this particular example, I'll be the Richards Bay branch manager, and I then capture my wish list of employees for the new year. So I'll choose a month, I type in a title, salary, I choose the pension fund, whether they're a salesperson for commission. The minute I hit my enter key, my budget calculates, my payroll recalculates, my bottom line recalculates, it's done and updated everywhere. Then if I want to go and have a look at some payroll reports, I can go in here and look at payroll by branch, and this will show me, just refresh that. If I refresh this, I can go in, double click, this is Richards Bay on all employees, and you notice when I punched in the information, I just did the basic salary, but it's gone in with all the formulas that we have in our system, calculated leave pay, UIF, all of that is recalculated for you, and you can see the list of new employees. Okay, so there's a lot more to show you. We've got CapEx where you have similar templates. You enter CapEx, the CapEx budget gets updated, your depreciation gets updated. all those concepts are there. So we cover all of that kind of stuff very easily. So I wish I could talk more about it, but again, in the interests of time, what I'm going to do is just flip over to some of the dashboarding functionalities that we have and just show you how, when you've done all your work, you can present it to end users, especially those that are not too comfortable in Excel, or those that are at an exec level, and you can have dashboards that you show them. So you've got, you can have a portal page over here, and you can go and start looking at your information. So you can have an income statement, and again, you do your printed management account still in Excel with the book and all the sheets in it. But if you want to look at it visually in a dashboard kind of view, you can basically use your dashboarding functionality and open all of this up. Sorry, my image is a little bit slow today. So any questions in the meantime while we wait for this to open? So let me actually just log off here and go to Chrome. This is where it all happens, and open IBM. Just log in again. It might be my login credentials giving me a bit of grief here. Log in here and reports and analysis. I go to my favorites. So you can create your own dashboards, drag stuff on, self-serve. Again, no specialized training required. Open up your information. Click on, here we go, that's a bit better. Click on your portals, have a navigation tab over here. Financial statements, again, this is more of a dashboardy kind of way. I mean, you wouldn't distribute this as your pack. That we would do in Excel in the way I described before, but dashboarding certainly adds a lot of value and sort of spruces it up quite a bit. And you can basically have different filters where you have different organizations. So this is an IBM example, so this isn't Bearing Man. And you can have a look at all of the information. So financial statements, your income statements, your departmental P&Ls, all of that's basically available here. You can drill down on it. You can change filters, you can change years, you can change months. So if you've got financial summary, you've got information about, for example, headcount as well. So you can have a sort of dashboard that you distribute as well. And the good thing is you can capture information in here as well. So this isn't a one-way system. This is TM1. It's reading from the same database. So here you've got employee information. So you can start capturing data into these templates as well. And this can be your input template. So you can actually distribute these as well as templates for users. And as they change it, they can see the graphs change and see if they've suddenly made the graph plummet to the ground or shoot through the ceiling in terms of expenses going up. So users can punch it in, refresh it, and do all of those kinds of good things. So that's headcount, OPEX, capital, just other examples as well. So assets, you can basically capture in your CapEx wish list over here. You've chosen over here furniture. It tells you the asset life of furniture being 12 years, just as a standout. And as you punch it in, it shows you your depreciation numbers as they change and as they shift. We have revenue budgeting. So you've got product information that you might want to look at. You can add new products, update forecasts. You've got SKU budgeting where you can update the units, supply chain information that you might want to capture as well. So yeah, the list is kind of endless, but I guess the overriding message is that you can basically have it all done visually as well, and it's pretty easy to basically go and write your own reports and dashboards too. So if you want to go to new over here, you can do a new book, and I can go in here, create a new tab, and I can start as a user. Again, no technical expertise. I can go to, let's go to Bearing Man, for example, over here. I can go into a dashboard, and you know that sort of sales budget adjustment sheet. I can go in there and make a dashboard out of this and have multiple tabs. So we had this as sales, and then I can go in here and drag this in. Okay, move it around, resize it. I'm still in edit mode, so you'd have all these things looking a bit better afterwards. So you can have that going in. Users can interact with that. Rename your tab. I'll call this sales adjustment. And then I might want to see the income statement next to it so I can see the effect on it. So I can add a new tab and I can go in here, create, and add in my income statement into my sheets over here. If you change one, the other changes. I can have another tab and I can put visualizations and graphs or add them to this and sync them so that if you change the year on one, it changes the year and all the others. So yeah, I'd love to spend more time going through that, but I guess my message is self-service, reuse stuff, drag it on, work in Excel as your main workbench, and then present it nicely with interactive dashboards that can be used to present the data and even to capture the data in it, and it's the same database.
And can the user design the dashboards and templates and all of that?
Absolutely.
Specific to the company.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So over here, if you want to add a new template over here, you can create a new template. So rather than dragging in existing stuff, which I've got, you can also go in and you've got a whole lot of visualizations that you can drag in over here. Bar chart exploration, map charts. A lot of these modern charts, I'm not even sure what they do, Mariko charts, drag them in, put the data into them from your source system, from whatever qubit you want, sales information, and design yourself a whole lot of charts, kind of like you'd do in Excel. So yeah, this is your workbook, and I'm really working as a user. This is the kind of hat that I'm wearing at the moment. I'm a user. I can save this book. So once I've saved this, I can save this and I can put this under my personal list of books, and I can call this test book 1, or I can share it in different folders. There it is. And yeah, you can go in and you can also add comments to numbers. You can right click on a number that you see, sales number with a variance of 25%. You can right click as a user and add a comment and say, this looks a bit high. Please can someone else comment, and it keeps the list of comments behind it as well. So guys, I think that's pretty much me. Like I said, I could spend a lot more time, but hopefully that gave you guys a good insight into what you can do with TM1. And the main take-home point is, I think, the ability to model absolutely anything. It's not just a pretty face. All other tools, they're all pretty faces, but the powerful modeling functionality where we've done stuff, you know, from modeling packing plans for sugar companies, to working out distribution schedules, to doing activity-based costing. It can all be done. I've worked with other tools in the past, and what I've often seen is they can handle some complexity, but you get to a point where the calculations are just so complicated in Excel, activity-based costing, recharges, and all of that, that you're forced to go back to Excel and do it and then punch the numbers in. And as soon as you do that, you undermine the value of your tool completely, because you can't have one driver change and automatically affect everything else. The whole idea is to have every single calculation must be modeled in this tool. And this is the tool that can do it. And yes, it has also got a pretty face. Okay, guys, that's pretty much me. And I think breakfast is on its way shortly. And while we wait, let's, questions, conversations, and while we're eating breakfast, at the same time, we can chat further. So, yeah, over to you guys. You can also take a break, but walk in, walk out, ask questions. Let's have any conversations that you want.
How was that? A lot. Willem.
There's an API for it, so you can't connect directly to it, but it's got a REST API, so you can basically access it and other tools with the full API to be able to draw data from it. IDU, we've just talking out of turn. Bearing Man had IDU. It couldn't do the modeling. Yeah, they had to resort to Excel and punch it back in. So they had IDU. We came in, they threw IDU out of Bearing Man itself. And we originally looked at IDU before Team 1 came along. We were actually an IDU partner. And then Team 1 came along. So I'm sure it's good, but the modeling stuff, I've never seen anything that can model any spreadsheet. So at the heart of it is a modeling tool where you can have any calculation possible that you can do in Excel. And there are a few tools, I don't have any that can model absolutely any calculation. Yeah. Never ever set them up. Yeah. 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 Yes, absolutely. And if you don't have that, we can set it up too. So sometimes you have a chart of accounts, and a lot of ERPs don't have a full chart of accounts. So in Team 1, because it's a flexible tool like in Excel, we just set up a mapping table, parent-child. So you'll have all your reporting lines, and you'll have sales is a child of gross profit. Cost of sales is a child of gross profit. So when you expand gross profit, you get those. But then, so you set up your structure, and then you assign each account. You have a list of accounts, and you say, okay, that belongs to sales. So we've often set up mapping systems where they don't have a chart of accounts, and we can set up an ability for users to create their own chart of accounts and map accounts to them. So you can have statutory views, management account reviews, different flavors of it, all on the same data. Yeah, absolutely. And we can set up a mapping table rather than hard code it for the users to map it themselves, or to even go and map it to a corporate chart of accounts. So their subsidiaries report differently with different structures. You can set it up so for each subsidiary you map it to the group, to the group chart of accounts that you're using. I'm not sure. We can get back to you on that one. If S-Space has got connectors, yeah, I would assume so. I don't know. We can find out. Sure.
What you're saying is that if
Yes.
so it can be
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of customers where we've sourced the information from SAP. Yeah. Absolutely. Everything that you're going to do in Excel, the budgets, the commissions, the calculations, the change in exchange rates, all set that up as parameters. And when you change an exchange rate, it will affect your entire model. So yeah.